This week on The Nutshell, we're going to be talking about skin health, and who better to talk to about this than today's guest, skin expert star Khechara. She's an author and educator. She founded the world's first internationally accredited, evidence-backed academy for teaching plant-based skin nutrition to professionals and practitioners. So welcome to The Nutshell, Star.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That's a good intro. I like that.
We are going to go right back to basics to start with, and I want to ask you, why is skin so important? What does the skin do for us?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So a lot of people know it's like, the largest organ of the body, and it's the fancy covering for all of the important stuff. But the skin is really important for whole body health as well. I mean, it's our first line of defense against the outside world. So it's got, it plays a role in the immune system. It protects us from elements. It keeps us snug and warm. It's like our little thermostat. And it does like a lot of biochemical things in there as well. So there are like fibroblasts that build like the different proteins. The skin barrier houses the skin microbiome. Like it just does so many things. And often we just kind of treat it like this afterthought organ, whereas we wouldn't treat a liver like that so much. But it's been my fascination forever because I used to have horrific skin disorders as a child. I started making my own skincare products to try and soothe my own skin, and that grew into a huge business and my first book. And now I moved into, I was studying nutrition for many years, and I thought, hang on, nutrition does more for the skin. So I'm just fascinated by skin and all the things it does. I think it's a neglected organ, and it's treated as if it's just purely aesthetic when it's actually a massive part of whole body health.
And also it can be a sensitive thing for people if they feel that, this is the skin is acting as a window on their overall health. Can we talk a little bit about what our skin health tells us about what's going on with our health overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite topics. I like to say that skin is the barometer of what's happening inside the body, especially when I'm talking about the anti-aging aspects of my work. And that's a bit of a tricky word for some people. They don't like it because, they think I'm saying, hey, we should all look 25. And actually, that's not it at all. It's more about, whatever's happening on the outside of the body is actually just indicative of what's happening inside the body. So as our organs age, as our cells age, it starts showing up on the outside, and disorders, such as especially gut disorders, start showing up on the outside of the body too. So I just really love the idea that the skin is more like this mirror or a barometer of what's happening inside the body.
And you mentioned that you'd gone into skincare initially sort of looking at products and things, and now you're very interested in the nutrition aspect of caring for our skin. So can we talk a little bit about the balance between those two things? How much of skin health is internally nutritional versus what we're putting on the outside?
So there's no exact sort of scientific measured ratio for this. But as someone that's just worked in both of those fields now in the last 25 years, that's been my life, my professional guesstimation is that it's about 80% diet, about 10% skincare, or maybe less, and then the rest is lifestyle choices like activity, smoking, sleep, these kind of things, the non-diet lifestyle stuff.
We are actually going to talk a little bit more about some of those lifestyle aspects a bit later on. But first of all, what we really want to do is go back to what we love talking about on this particular podcast, and that is food and nutrition. How does the food we eat impact our skin? Can you give us some examples of that, particularly maybe in regard to how we're aging, as you've alluded to?
When you consider that skin is an organ of the whole body, every single cell in our body is built, maintained, and repaired by the materials that we're providing. So if you're building a house, you want to be getting good quality bricks, because otherwise your house is going to fall down. And it's the same with the body. When we're not providing quality materials, that really starts to show up at the cellular level, which then appears on the skin. And you guys as doctors will see it in various aspects of human health. And there are sort of like 12 or so major cellular aging pathways that all can be sped up or slowed down with the foods and the dietary patterns that we're doing and consuming. So you've got like oxidative stress, inflammation, glycation, insulin resistance, like all of these things can be upregulated or downregulated depending on how we tweak the diet. And all of those things cause aging at the cellular level, or can minimize, and even in some instances we can reverse it a little bit too. So diet is like the number one thing for doing that.
We've seen on your website that you've quoted berries, not Botox. So can you tell us more about, some of the specific foods that are going to help us look after our skin in the best way?
After doing probably after about 10 years of research, I really started to see a pattern, because I'm looking into, with skin is a huge subject. You can look at immunology, you can look at diet. I mean, it's huge. What I started to notice after reading thousands of science papers on skin health and skin aging, I started noticing a pattern of the same foods kept appearing again and again, and the same sort of dietary protocols, like low fat, like high natural carbohydrates, and then fruit kept coming up more and more and more. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting, because personally, I've noticed that the more fruit I include in my diet, the younger I look. Well, that's not science, that's just me. But it was really nice to see that reflected in the science research. And there are compounds in fruits that are just harder to get in vegetables. Some of them don't even exist in high amounts in vegetables. So, for example, senolytics would be one example. So as we age, we gather more senescent cells. So I like to call these zombie cells, because your cells are supposed to be alive or die and then get recycled. But when they're kind of stuck in a zombie state, when they don't actually die, they cause a lot of aging, because they give off pro-inflammatory cytokines, which then infect all the other cells around them, like the moldy apple in the barrel, type of situation. And in certain foods, there are these things called senolytics, which are literally the zombie killers. And they're only in a few foods. And one of those is strawberries. There's quite a lot of different little phytochemicals that do all these amazing things at the cellular level and most of them are in colorful, juicy fruit. So yeah, berries, not Botox.
So strawberries, got it. So that's a good one. Any other examples of things that, if we're trying to give us our face a treat? Well, actually, let's not just talk about the face. The whole of the skin is important. Yeah.
I mean, so you've got things like beta carotene, which we know that when it's in a vegetable, it's harder for us to get hold of, because the vegetables are very fibrous. So that's where the whole cook your carrots, or juice your carrots to get more of the beta carotene. But beta carotene is actually much more bioavailable in mangoes, because we don't have to break down all those tough fibers. So sometimes it's not even that it's a specific compound that's only in fruit. Sometimes a compound is more bioavailable in fruit. So beta carotene is the precursor to vitamin A. It's one of the big skin vitamins. So it helps protect us against lots of oxidative stress, especially from UVB. I don't know why I'm pointing at the window, it's dark, but when it is sunny, beta carotene helps to protect us from damage from the sun. So that's another one. So sometimes there's a phytochemical that's only in fruit, and sometimes it's a phytochemical or a nutrient that's just easier to absorb when it's in fruit. So I'm really passionate about how people see that fruit is like the number one skin food in the world.
How much fruit and what kinds of fruit are you eating in a day at the moment?
Okay, so it's being winter in England, not a lot of berries, unfortunately, but mostly tropical fruit. I eat a lot of pineapples, cantaloupe melon, mangoes, and bananas. They make up a lot of my calorie intake. And then in summer, I switch more to peaches and strawberries and things. So it is a bit seasonal, but I love apples as well. I've just got back into apples. I think they're such an underrated food, because, we see apples all the time. They're really kind of boring. But there's a farmer's market in the park opposite my house, and they do local organic apples, and the flavor is just insane. And I love apples because they're rich in pectin, which is great for gut health. They've got high amounts of quercetin, which is one of the anti-aging compounds. And quercetin is actually one of the nutrients that is important for a lot of skin disorders as well. So yeah, I just love, every fruit's got something to offer, but in winter it's the tropicals and then randomly loads of apples at the same time.
So you mentioned quercetin. Almost never heard of it. What skin condition might that help with?
Well, acne is one of them because it helps to. Okay, so when people have hormonal acne, when the testosterone is a bit high, so androgen hormones are really implicated in hormonal acne, especially in perimenopausal women, because the estrogen dips, so the testosterone becomes more dominant. And then there's a compound that the body makes, and it actually makes it in the skin as well, called 5-alpha reductase. And that turns testosterone into the much more potent version, DHT, which can cause acne because it upregulates the amount of sebum, skin oils that the skin produces. Quercetin is one of the phytochemicals that can actually kind of intervene and stop that happening. It's called a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor. So it stops that transformation from testosterone to DHT and therefore stops the upregulation of sebum overproduction. That's what, so if you think of acne being like a condition of sort of like oily skin, it's kind of like getting in the way of the oil production.
Okay, so more of a kind of hormone regulator, and I think we're going to talk a bit more about acne in a minute. So I'm actually going to come back to thinking about, do any of these good things that are in fruit, do they come as supplements, and would you recommend supplements?
Yeah, so most of them do. I've seen a few, and I've definitely seen quercetin and things like that in supplement form and resveratrol. But the problem is that, when you look into like the science of some of those things, once they've been made into extracts, they're not always bioavailable. So one of the ones, I was reading a paper recently on apigenin. That's one of the phytochemicals I'm studying currently because it's another one that's to do with acne, which is a big topic right now because it's a course I'm building. So I'm all in on the acne research currently. And apigenin is not, it's really unstable once it's been extracted. And so it's destroyed before it even gets into your body. And so you need to really have it from foods. And if anyone wants to know where they get apigenin, it's in celery, parsley, and chamomile tea. So like easy to get, it's easy to get in regular foods. And also, like, I really believe that we should look at whole foods first because they're cheaper as well. Like, a lot of people are living in a cost of living crisis. Supplements tend to be quite expensive in comparison to the whole food. And I'm all about making this information and to empower people. Like, I want people to be able to go, I just need to eat this and this and not have to worry about expensive supplements. But yes, essentially they do. A lot of them do come in supplement form.
That's clear. It would be great to get all these things through our diet, but a topic of the moment that I'm going to have to ask you about because of all middle-aged ladies in the plant-based world listening is vegan collagen. There's a bit of a craze for taking it. What is it? What do we need to know about that?
Yeah, it is a massive topic, collagen/vegan collagen. Just to get into the world of semantics for a second, there isn't technically such a thing as vegan collagen unless you're literally eating a vegan. So vegan collagen is like a supplement of different nutrients that are known to support collagen production in the skin, right? So animal collagen is literal collagen. You can't really absorb it. And then vegan collagen tends to be the nutrients. So the main nutrients involved in collagen production are the amino acids, lysine and threonine. Then you've got zinc and manganese as minerals and huge amounts of vitamin C. It takes quite a lot of vitamin C to keep collagen production going as we get into this stage of life. Again, like you can take the supplement or you can get it from natural foods as well, which then come with the added benefit to getting these vegan collagen from actual food is that there are certain phytochemicals that will help in absorbing those vitamins more. So the collagen is made in specialized cells called fibroblasts. As we age, those fibroblasts get a bit sick and senescent as well. So again, it comes down to these zombie killer senolytics, where we need to really think about a more holistic approach where we're helping the health of the fibroblasts as well as providing the nutrients for the fibroblasts to make the collagen. Because if we're only putting one of the things in, it's not going to help the fibroblast if the fibroblast itself is kind of old and it's not being supported. So it's a multi-dimensional approach. And that's why I love getting these things from foods rather than supplements, because you get these other components that you just don't get from the supplement. Unless I invented a supplement, that'd be amazing, of course. But it's not really on my wish list for 2025.
But you have to be really careful. This is the thing, the things that stay in the internet that you've said previously, you might be precluding yourself a huge sponsorship deal there, Star. Before we move on to some of the other lifestyle pillars that we could use to support our skin, have we missed anything other than fruit in talking about how diet can support?
Yeah, I mean, a plant-based diet, especially a whole foods, the emerging pattern, when I look at like all of the science papers I've read, over the last decade or so on this particular topic, the overwhelming pattern tends to point to a low-fat, whole foods, plant-based diet. So that's the kind of general dietary protocol for like skin health and slowing down skin aging. If you get into the particulars of that, then I would say like make fruit. Like I developed a sort of food pyramid for my students to learn, and the largest section is the fruit section, and it says fruit in abundance, like just limitless, as much as you want. And then we have the colourful vegetables. A lot of the nutrients are in colours. Lots of different reasons for the low fat. So, for example, insulin resistance is one of the major things that can speed up aging in the skin. It can lead to glycation, which causes things called AGEs, which is, whoever named that is a genius. Like literally, these things that age you in your skin are called AGEs. It's just brilliant. So that stands for advanced glycation end products. And we create them in our bodies when we have too much blood sugar and insulin resistance. And, a lot of the science now is pointing towards a lower fat diet as being best for that, because high fat in the blood can stop the insulin pulling the glucose, into the cell. Higher fat diets have been shown to decimate the microbiome of the gut. What the science was showing when they looked at different levels of fat, the number that kept coming up, anything from 10 to 15% of macronutrients, calories as fat. So that's just what the pattern kept showing.
I wanted to ask about the thing that we're always told to do, have a glass of water in the morning when you get up, set an alarm to remind you to do it. What about hydration?
Yes, really important topic, hydration. And there's a lot of misinformation on skin hydration. Even dermatologists say, oh, you can't hydrate your skin by drinking water, you're not a houseplant. Where the confusion often lies is people mistake dry skin and dehydrated skin. So dry skin is surface level, it's to do with the epidermis, and it's basically a lack of like natural oils. So with sebum production, too much and you can get things like acne, too little and you can end up with dry skin and you get the flakes and everything. Dehydrated skin is actually deeper. It's in the dermis, and it's to do with like, in what's called the extracellular matrix, where your hyaluronic acid lives, and that holds on to like 1,000 times its own weight in water, which is just like, that's a fascinating little factoid that always blows my mind. And so we need to be topping up that water constantly to keep that hyaluronic acid in our dermis nice and plump. That's what gives us this plump, juicy skin. So if we're not replenishing that water, then it's, we're going to see a shrinkage of the dermis, which is one of the signs of aging, that loss of plumpness. And so, yeah, drinking water is really important, but not just drinking plain water. Plain water often has a bit of a waterfall effect. It goes in and it goes back out, it goes in and it comes back out. What we need to do is also make sure we're locking water into the cells as well. That comes about when we have more like isotonic fluids. And a really good isotonic fluid is coconut water. Another one is mixing fruit juice with water, like half and half. So eating juicy foods. I always encourage my clients, and also when I teach skin hydration, it's all about eating the juiciest foods. So as part of like a skin healthy breakfast, I always recommend things like juicy foods, like fruits and smoothies and fresh juices. Because when we lose a lot of water when we're sleeping, we sweat and we lose water. So the first thing we should do is rehydrate one way or another.
Just thinking about when I wake up in my overheated bedroom and I haven't slept well, and my complexion can look really dull and grey. And so what about sleep? Does that matter for our skin? I'm assuming it does, but tell us more.
I mean, sleep is just so important for health, isn't it, in general? And I think there's been some new research that's come out showing that women need more sleep than men. Like this idea of 8 hours. Apparently for men, it's more like 7 to 8. And for women, it's more like 8 to 9, which I feel vindicated because since I was a child, I've needed 9 to 10 hours. That's it. That's my standard. I'm such a sleeper. And I'm really glad I am. Sleep is where we reset everything, where the body does a lot of its detoxification. It's doing so many jobs while we sleep. There's hormones involved in sleep that are also involved in skin health as well, like melatonin plays a role in how our skin actually protects itself from the sun, which is weird because you would never think those two things had anything to do with each other, but they do. And so, if we're not getting that rest, our hormones are going to get messed up as well. How can we be a functioning, healthy human in all of our cells if we're just not getting enough sleep and resetting? We are a bit of a walking biological computer, really. We need to be switched off and switched back on again. but like 8 to 9 hours later.
Yeah, I'm like you, Star. I love a good night's sleep and I feel great after that. So I'm very lucky that I still sleep well. For us people like, well, myself, who have no idea what to put on my skin. I mean, I think I've got the sleep sorted. The nutrition's almost there. I'm obviously whole food, plant-based, and I drink a lot of water, but I'm always confused with what I should be putting on my skin. So what's a good skincare regime? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, not very much, to be honest. So considering my background was in skincare formulation and I can formulate so many different products, the fact is we just don't need most of them. And I always focus on natural and organic because a lot of skincare, a lot of commercial skincare is just water. And you can't absorb water through the skin. The skin is literally designed as a waterproof barrier. Imagine if every time you took a shower or went out in the rain that your skin wasn't a waterproof barrier. Like it'd be ridiculous. Anything that's like water based on the skin is just kind of useless. But if you look at the number one ingredient, whenever you look at the label on a moisturizer or something, and labels for skincare are quantitative, so it always has the biggest ingredient first. The number one ingredient is usually water, so it's just useless. So get rid of anything water based unless you're actually washing your skin. That's fine. So really, the skin needs two things: it needs to be cleaned, it needs to be lubricated, and that's it. And so with washing the skin, obviously we don't want to have harsh alkaline cleaners because that's going to destroy the skin microbiome. So that we have the acid mantle, our skin's around sort of 4.5 pH, and when we put something alkaline on it like soap or a detergent, it ups the pH, and that's when we kind of lose our beneficial bacteria and the horrible opportunistic ones can take over, because like Staphylococcus aureus likes that higher pH. It can affect everything, even like how we pick up infections and all sorts, when we start messing around the microbiome and destroying that lipid layer and that acid mantle. So we want to do something gentle. So I tend to use, like if I do use soap, which I have to sometimes, obviously we all do, I use like the most natural, gentle, homemade, locally produced soap I can get my hands on. And I always follow it up with a glycerin lotion, because glycerin has been shown to help regenerate the skin microbiome after it's been sort of stripped with the soap, because they feed on it. It's basically like a sort of sugar alcohol, and the skin microbiome, it's like a picnic to them. And then they start producing their metabolites, which are the short chain fatty acids, which acidify the skin surface again. Because once you wash your skin with something quite harsh, it takes 8 hours for the skin to normalize. So when you consider how often we wash our hands, sometimes our hands are not getting normalized at all. Like they're losing their microbiome like forever. So things like using a glycerin-based lotion can really help with that. So I make my own. It's very easy. It's literally 20 to 30% glycerin, to the rest is just like rose water. I often do it by eye because I can't be bothered to get my scales out. But if you had like 100 ml bottle, you would put like 30 ml of glycerin in, 70 ml of rose water or orange flower water, or any of those types of things. Give it a good shake, and then you can use it on your face after washing, and you can use it on your hands after washing to help repopulate the skin microbiome. And then after that, you want to use something fatty, basically. So a hand balm, face balm, oil-based serums. And again, you can make those yourself. Cheeky plug, I do have a book called The Holistic Beauty Book, which teaches you how to make all your own natural skincare like this. So yeah, that's what I do. And mostly I wash my face with a Japanese gauze flannel and warm water. And then I do my glycerin lotion, and I do my oil-based serum. And then once or twice a week, I do a clay mask to really deep clean. And that's really it.
Okay, now that sounds great. So can I just go back to the beginning though? When you wash your face, like what do you use to take makeup off?
Right. So makeup is a little bit tricky. So I've got some on today for this podcast. So I will have to just using my gauze flannel is not going to cut it. But most makeup is kind of, it's oil based rather than water based. So it's actually easier to get off with oil. So if you have like cotton pads and some oil, honestly, it doesn't matter which oil. Like you can use the olive oil from the kitchen. It works the same way. And you just want to just massage the oil into where you've got the makeup, and then just remove it with some cotton pads and done. And it's not gonna hurt your skin microbiome to do that, because you're actually using lipids, which the skin likes.
Yeah, that sounds so much more gentle, doesn't it, than the products you can buy.
Yeah, and there's no tugging of the skin. Like, you only use like these typical cleansers. It was like pulling and tugging to get the makeup off. But if you massage the oil in, it just melts off.
Very nice. And then in terms of your moisturizer, then you make your own, but if somebody hasn't got the time or the expertise, would you recommend?
Yeah, just look for something that's not got water as its first ingredient. You can even use things like, shea butter. If you have like anywhere like a health food store that sells like shea butter in a tin or something, you can just use that neat as it is. That's what I use a lot. I use a lot of shea butter, and because it's like soft enough to like it just melts into the skin straight away. Everyone's got a local skincare maker who might be at the local markets. If you live somewhere where there's no local people making really nice skincare, and if you can't get hold of any shea butter, then just look for the best thing you can. Anything that's mostly based on fats and waxes rather than having water at the beginning. So there are some good, like Neil's Yard probably do something.
Great, that's wonderful tips. And so sticking on that theme of skincare then, are you going to tell us we don't need these sort of extra fancy products we see on all the shelves, retinol, hyaluronic acid, vitamin C? I look at shelves and I'm completely confused.
Yeah, it's it's really exciting to look at all of that stuff. And as a ex skincare formulator, I love the idea of making these really like bioactive, nutritive products, and it excites me when I see the ingredients list of things like that. But when I look at the science, it's just very thin on the ground, a lot of it, because the skin is like this barrier. It's designed to kind of stop things coming through it. It's not just like opening its doors and be like, come in, one and all. It's really sort of like, and especially when things are water based. When you think vitamin C is a water based, is a water soluble vitamin, hyaluronic acid is water based. Those things just aren't getting through the skin, and a lot of things the molecules are too big anyway. Like collagen, there's a lot of collagen masks going around at the moment, and it's just pointless. Collagen cannot move through the skin. It can barely move through our own gut, to be honest. The molecules are so huge. It definitely can't get through the skin. So yeah, a lot of it is just, it's there to look like, it's a cute addition. Maybe a tiny bit of it gets through the skin. But when you consider, something like, a jar of cream is like usually about 30 mil, and then you're using like 3 mil of that cream on a daily basis, and then of that 3 mil, 1% of that might be the active ingredient. It's just so much easier to get that active ingredient from food, and then it actually does go through and you digest it and it does get to your cells. Everything else is just a bit of hope and a prayer, to be honest, unless it's oil based, like stuff like vitamin E. That works better because it's an oil base. But in general, I tend to say to people, don't treat your skin like a stomach. That your stomach is for digesting all of the nutrients. The skin is really for cleaning and caring for the skin microbiome and then lubricating.
Brilliant. Okay. And can I just push you on the retinol thing?
Well, they're using tretinoin now, aren't they? Because like the original retinol was like animal based.
Oh, yeah.
So tretinoin is basically trans retinoic acid. But you know what? Like it does make a bit of difference because it is naturally in oils. It's oil based, so oil soluble rather. So it can get through the skin a little bit. But rosehip oil naturally has trans retinoic acid in it. So back in the day when I was doing the speaking circuit in skincare, I did a whole talk on like tretinoin in rosehip, and no one had really heard of it back then. But now it's become a trending ingredient. But you can get it from just rosehip oil. You don't need to take the expensive creams with the tretinoin added to it. The thing to remember is like something is either a cosmetic or it's a medical product and has medical licensing. And only medical products can really be designed to go all the way through to the dermis. Anything that's cosmetic only has surface value. That's it. Because if it went all the way through, it would be classed as a medical product. And, then it would have to go through a different pathway, different licensing. Just be aware of that. Like, even if something has a bit of like the tretinoin can do a bit of good, but it's not, it's surface level.
I can see Claire writing notes. Were you writing rose hip? Is that what you're writing, Claire? combination of things. I was like thinking, because I don't always retain all the great information that we get on these podcasts from our guests.
Me neither.
And it's almost like, okay, so I'm thinking, eat the strawberries, don't eat the glycerin, because the glycerin I've only really seen like in Sainsbury's in the baking section, the Dr. Oetker glycerin in a tube. Is that what I could be using on my face mixed with
the rose water. Yeah,
okay.
so glycerin, so glycerin is edible too, so it's used in food. It's a very safe product. The only thing not to get in the baking section is the rose water, because it's usually fake. It's chemical rose water. But if you go to like a cook shop, you'll find it. And also, all of these things are available quite easy on like places like Amazon these days. Not that I want to give Amazon a plug, but it's like we live with like all of the stuff at our fingertips now. We're just a click away from buying anything, which is kind of scary, but also quite exciting. So, you can get these ingredients quite easily, even if they're not in your local shop.
Nice. And any other questions, Claire, before I move on? I'm ready for the compliments to start rolling in. How long on this regime should I need before I start seeing a difference?
Good question, actually, because skin, there is a turnover for skin.
Yes.
And most people think it's around 30 days, but that was studies done on the body skin. For the face, it's a little bit longer. It's up to 45 days. So really like a month and a half. And that slows down a bit as we age as well, the skin cell regeneration. So, just give it a couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too long. Yeah, lovely. Some great tips there. Thank you. Star, can we move on to problem skin, I guess? You mentioned that you're doing a lot of work on acne. So can you tell us a bit more about, I guess, what is acne, who's typically affected by acne, and how does that come about?
Yes. So I'm currently writing a new accredited like CPD class on acne, like the links between nutrition and acne. So I've come up with this acronym that I'd like to share, if that's okay. There's a few different things that interact with the when you're looking at the sort of integrative picture of like nutrition acne. So the acronym I came up with is SHINDIG. It's skin and barrier health, hormonal balance, insulin resistance, nutrition, detoxification, I can't read my own writing, inflammation, and gut microbiome. So that's like the SHINDIG pattern. So in the course, I'm teaching all of those areas. Acne is one of those weird things because it happens a lot in teenagers. Obviously, they're going through lots of hormonal crises. Plus, it tends to be the age at which their diet just goes out the window. They start eating more junk food. I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, I lived on Burger King. It's like, and candy, like chocolate bars and all sorts. And so it's that time of year when, time of life, when lots of crazy things can happen in your skin. But then there's kind of like a gap. And then for women specifically, tends to be when we hit perimenopause because of the hormones going a bit haywire. The estrogen drops, the testosterone then becomes a bit more dominant, which leads to the increase of the sebum, because acne's got like this cascade that happens as it forms. So first of all, the first trigger is overproduction of sebum, which is the skin's natural oils. Then the hair follicles kind of get clogged up with that, a combination of the sebum and keratinocytes, like the dead skin cells, basically. And then after that, what happens is that makes a tasty banquet for the invasion of a bacteria called C. acnes, Cutibacterium acnes. And then the next stage is inflammation. So the sebum overproduction bit, which is stage one of this cascade, is where we can really start to intervene with the diet, especially when women are approaching that perimenopause. 43% of adults over 30 suffer with acne, which is quite a high amount, I think. 65.2% of all adult visits to the doctor for acne were women. So it's huge. It's more than double like women to men that are going in search of adult acne help. So we often think about it as a teenage problem, but it's not. It's very much kind of like a woman's hormone problem in a sense.
I think I read somewhere that acne in teenagers tends to be more common in boys, but in adults it tends to be, as you say, women who are affected. And in terms of the psychological impacts of acne, obviously it can be quite impacting both for teenagers and adults. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not in my field exactly because I'm all nutrition and phytochemicals, but I mean, as someone that suffered with facial eczema, I never got acne, but I used to have facial eczema as a child. It's really horrifying to have something going on with your face that everyone can see. And as much as you don't want to be like, you know, oh, my face is everything and I'm so vain. And it's actually just horrifying because we do judge people by how they look. It's just a human trait, it seems. And so it can be devastating for people with really severe acne because it looks kind of unsightly. It's like it's swollen and it's red and it's angry. I mean, I can't even imagine how that feels as a physical symptom, but it must be devastating to want to go out and you can't cover it with makeup. You can still see it. It's one of those things. Whereas when I had really bad eczema, it kind of could be covered over a bit because it's not lumpy and nodular. It's more flat. But I feel, I do feel for people with acne, and that's why I wanted to create this course. So because I train practitioners, then they can help their clients try and resolve the acne situation, so they don't have to be out in a vanity-based world and being judged by what they look like, because that must be horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as a GP, I would often prescribe topical treatments for acne or oral treatments if it's necessary. But I think I do feel a bit stuck when a teenager or an adult asks me, oh, what should I eat? Or does my diet impact it? I'm always not quite sure what the evidence is on that. Can you give us a bit of details on that?
To be honest, there isn't a ton of direct evidence from diet to acne, but what we have is more evidence. So when with my with my shindig acronym, with the different pathways that lead to acne, what I'm really looking at is the nutrition that sort of like helps with those pathways rather than directly for the acne, because it is a bit thin on the ground. There hasn't been a lot of money spent on that science. Unfortunately, the only kind of direct link we have, there is some evidence that meat and dairy make a big impact. And it makes an impact through what's called the IGF-1 and /mTOR signaling pathways. And those lead to this sebum overproduction, which is basically like the first biomarker in our cascade towards acne is overproduction of sebum. Meat and dairy is like the main one, and also high glycemic food, because that also activates, you've got the hyperinsulinemia, which leads to the release of insulin like growth factor 1, IGF-1, which then stimulates the sebocytes to produce too much sebum. So there's this little cascade. So it's very basic still. It's kind of in its infancy, this direct link from nutrition to acne, from food to acne. So this is why when I've been creating this work, I'm having to pull from all these different sciences. I'm having to look at insulin resistance. I'm having to look at inflammation. And so what we're doing is we're attacking those things instead to make this integrative approach to mitigating acne or reversing it.
That's really useful, because I think it also empowers people if they can make some changes to their own lifestyle rather than, waiting for medications or waiting to see a dermatologist or going on some, quite potent medication sometimes. Well, I mean, the dermatologists often go with the oral tretinoins, don't they? Which
that's right,
need liver monitoring and blood testing and, can be quite a journey. So, yeah, I think it's really empowering to be able to sort of talk about diet if there is any evidence there.
Yeah, definitely. And also people taking those compounds and, the orals or the topicals, they can still benefit from the diet side as well. Maybe it augments the topical treatment they're having.
No, absolutely. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. Brilliant. Is there anything else on acne and the program that you're doing that you'd like to tell us about?
To me, it's just like an exciting emerging field. There's not a lot I can probably say there's a definite. What fascinates me is looking for like patterns and influence in a more integrative way. So rather than saying this food does this or this disease is caused by this, which it's very reductive. And you guys will know this too. Like science can be so reductive that my fascination with any skin disorder or any skin issue is like, I love looking at all the science around it, not just, oh, can I look for a cure here? Because there isn't always such a straightforward thing. And I think with acne, that's why it's so important to really look at all these different things, like look at the insulin resistance, look at the inflammation of the body, look at the gut microbiome, because also the nice thing is then we're not really treating the acne, we're treating the whole person. So it becomes much more of a holistic approach, because all of these things, all of these pathways are at the cellular level anyway. So it's affecting the entire body. So it's not even just like, let's treat the acne with some diet. It's like, wow, we're actually just treating the whole body, making everything healthier anyway. And that, I think, for me is like,
that's all great, but no pressure, Star,
oh, no.
on this question. But what we want to know is, it might not be the same for everybody. It might be that you want to tell us what me and Daisy should have for dinner, looking at our skin, or you might want to tell us what you're having for dinner.
My favorite dinner, and I know people are going to be like, oh, but I really love salad. But like when I say salad, I'm not talking iceberg lettuce and soggy tomatoes. Like when I make a salad, it is a banquet in a bowl. I put all kinds of things in there. Like I love quinoa, I love seaweed. I like making my own dressings from scratch. Sometimes I'll make fruit dressings with like blackberries and tahini and things. I like sprinkles and seeds and herbs. Honestly, I just go crazy. Whatever's in the kitchen goes into the big bowl. And as long as you make a tasty dressing, it's all good. But I also like wraps, but I'm like gluten intolerant and gluten-free wraps are just vile. So I often make things like nori wraps. I try to eat some form of sea vegetable daily because it has loads of benefits for me with having like IBS and gut issues. Polysaccharides that can help with the gut. And there's lots of minerals in sea plants that are great for skin. So I love eating seaweed. So I try and add seaweed to anything that I'm eating. But yeah, generally it's like a massive bowl of like all kinds of things from my fridge. Fruit goes in there too, like mango, shredded cabbage, just like a whole bowl of like so many things. And then nuts and sprinkles, microgreens. Yeah. If anyone who looks at my Instagram, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we know. We've seen the photos." But yeah, a big pile of awesomeness,
like a Buddha bowl type thing. I mean, that's a really creative way of eating, isn't it? Because you can just put the flavors that you like.
It's easy as well. Because I honestly, for someone that's like, I'm quite a foodie, and also I work in the field of nutrition. And I'm writing a recipe book too. So I'm really into like recipes and creating. I actually don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I really have like a belief of like, your food shouldn't take hours to make, because I've got a life to live. I want that food to give me energy to live my life, not to take it away because I've got pots and pans to scrub for hours.
Yeah, simple, like, nutritious, delicious. Yeah.
Simple and quick. Yeah.
We're on the same page there, Star. What about you, Claire? What are you having for dinner?
I'm going out later, so I've literally I'm going to cut a few corners, but I am having some foods I love. I've got some rye sourdough, and I'm going to cut that up, and then I'm just going to just in a pan fry some tofu slices, and put those tofu slices on top of those slices of rye bread, and then I'm going to chuck a jar of homemade kimchi on the top. And then while I'm doing that, I'm just going to toast. I've thought about this, haven't I? I'm going to toast some mixed seeds. So sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds. I've got a seed mix. I'm going to chuck those on top. And I've done this once before and I just was like, wow, that's such a great combo. So I'm really looking forward to having that and knowing that it's going to take almost less than 5 minutes to make.
Yes.
Sounds great. So this is like your dinner in a hurry before you go out type thing.
Dinner in a hurry. So it's all the foods that I like. I love bread. I've talked about that before. Love tofu and I love kimchi. And I'm just treating myself with a few fatty seeds on there.
Sounds great. This is why we're friends. I love all those things, Claire.
Yeah. Daisy, have you changed your dinner plan based on what Star has told us today?
The big bowl. Well, I actually am having leftovers, so it's a bit boring, but I have a tip. I have a dinner tip rather than a dinner plan. So I'm going to have a leftover chickpea curry that we've had last night, but I'm going to spice it up a bit tonight because I'm obsessed, Star, with putting kale in the oven and making kale chips.
Right.
And yes, little bit of olive oil, salt, and just in the oven. It mustn't be too hot either, like 160.
Yeah.
Yes, 160 Celsius. Yeah, and then I can basically eat a whole bag of kale because it goes on top of the curry. Like it forms like these really delicious crispy bits on top.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my dinner tip really, rather than a new recipe, because I think you've already heard my chickpea curry, Claire, haven't you?
I love it. I love the way that like
Have I?
foods can be eaten in so many different ways. Because
Yeah.
like a lot of people say like, oh, I hate kale, but it's like, have you tried kale crisps?
Yeah, exactly. And have you actually put them in your food or on top of your food?
Right.
Because it just adds a whole nother texture and flavour, and yeah, really nice.
I'm hearing and retaining that it's 160 degrees, Daisy, because when I make,
160.
there's a few things I do with crispy kale, and I think I go into there are no antioxidants remaining. It's been completely
probably
cooked to a crisp.
Char grilled.
Probably, but the kale's on its last legs, so this is my way of salvaging it, as I've had it in the fridge for too long. It's, you know, when you get these massive bags, and I've used about half the bag already, probably fresh and you know, much better for me. But now I've got this wilting half that needs
kale.
something to do.
It needs to be revived with a warm oven and made crispy.
I love that, revived rather than.
Yeah. It's like just giving it its purpose.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Star. We really enjoyed chatting with you today. And I feel like I've got some really like tangible things that I'm going to do now with my skincare routine. So that's been really brilliant. And I'm sure the listeners will hopefully feel the same way. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. Thanks so much.
It's been brilliant. And if people want to connect with you, find out more about your work, can you tell us where they can find you and buy your books?
Yeah. So the Holistic Beauty book is everywhere. It's like Amazon, Waterstones. You can find me on Instagram at The Age Hacker. Also on TikTok. Come and say hello. Ask me any questions. I'm always interested to answer people's questions on this kind of stuff. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. We'll put all the links in the show notes, listeners. And I'm getting myself a copy of your book. I'm going to start making my own skincare.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.